Welcome to an episode of Who Gives a Hoot. This has been our fourth attempt to get this one going today. Um, we are the in-state hosts because everybody else is gone. I'm
Yeah,
Ryan.
I'm Camille.
I'm with the newly engaged Camille. Congratulations.
Woo, thank
Look at
you.
that.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
of course. I hope so.
Yeah, I said
um,
yes.
yeah. His dad joke to go down for the ring was classic and made me love him so much more.
He thought it was the best thing ever. It was pretty funny. I blacked out though, so I didn't remember it until he brought it back up again and was like, "Didn't you think that was funny?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah. Yeah,
But
you're hilarious."
you got to have those classic stories.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, my wife and I, when I proposed to her, it was we were still in college, so but you and I has a campanile, big like clock tower bell thing,
Hmm.
and I got her to walk from the apartment complex we both had apartments in over to the campanile. She complained the entire time. And then it was wet on the ground, and apparently I was too much of a diva. I didn't even get down on one knee. So good on Dalton. He got down on one knee. Um, but hey, I'm still married 13 years later, so it worked out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was your big news.
Yep. That's it.
Um, so tonight we have a little bit of news to talk about. Um, and then we are going to talk about the U.S. Open Cup game against the Hailstorm, and then we are going to talk about the Richmond match. So big news that came out: Ryan Jiba made Team of the Week.
Awesome.
I think is that his? I believe that's his first Team of the Week as an Owl too.
I think
So
you're right.
a lot. I think a lot of people, on our Discord, on the Parliament Discord, I think other people are saying it too. We've talked about it a lot. I know Ryan's really growing in to his role at left back, and I think this just shows that he's making that next step to make it there. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, we
Uh,
are. I mean, we've said it from the beginning of the season, even during preseason, is he has so much potential and he's just getting better and better with every game. So I'm excited for him.
yeah, no, his raw talent is great, and I will
Yeah,
say, with Isaac on the other side, that's a dynamic fullback pairing. It's amazing.
it's great to
Um,
see.
yeah. When Isaac understands the ability to come back and play defense and recover,
Hmm.
um, and they both have the speed to recover.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
um, Other news, and we won't fully get into why today. Part of it is because of the hailstorm match, but the Charlotte Independence match that was supposed to be on May 25th, home match, was moved to August. I don't remember the exact date because I'm a terrible host. Um, and Luke's in Maine, drunk right now. So I said that because there's like a 99% chance he won't listen to this.
It's true. It's sometime
Um,
in August. I know that.
yeah, I think it got moved to like early to mid August.
Yeah.
Still be a home match, all that good stuff. Obviously, the hope was to get a home match for U.S. Open Cup, but either way, we have to play that week during the midweek, so we can't play our league game.
Hmm.
So part of me is okay with moving Charlotte out that far though, because right now they're kind of doing the whole like up and down, hot and cold thing,
Yeah.
and maybe things even out a little bit by then. I don't know.
I think any chance to get something moved to the end is nice because your team's more established by the end of the season.
True.
Yeah.
Well, we know we have all these road stretches like we did last year at the
Right.
beginning. Well, this is just another home game to add to that home stretch we'll be in.
Definitely.
And that should be about the time getting close to when baseball's done.
Very
We
true.
we were talking off camera or off recording that MILB is playing 150 games this year, so I don't know for sure how many, but
Hmm.
how close that'll be. But maybe that helps us with field flips too.
Right.
So, all right, do we want to jump right into talking about the Open Cup match?
Yeah, let's do it.
The amazing Open Cup match. So first thing, I know I ran into you right before the match, but I don't think I saw
Mhm.
you then throughout the match. What did you think of Caniglia?
I actually really liked it. I was thinking it would be too crammed, but the minute I walked onto the stadium or just onto the bleachers in the seating area, I look up and I look down because you're right in the middle when you walk through, and I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
this is already packed.
Yeah,
And it was great to see. I mean, the people sitting behind us had clearly never been to a soccer game in their life, which is what you can ask for. You need more
exactly.
fans. They were enjoying it. And it's just, I think it was such a great place to have that US Open Cup game.
Yeah. Couple things I think we still had, I think it was close a little over 2,000. I know that the announced attendance was one thing, but they also allowed UNO students in with their student ID card.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if they were counting them as they came in. They didn't actually scan tickets, which both Creighton and UNO have struggled with this. So that also throws attendance numbers off a little bit. But
Hmm.
the first thing I said with the Parliament and UA Army, the UA guys were with us too. All the drums going, and then the setup, it reminded me of a high school football game.
Yeah, it's
Whereas like the
true.
drum lines going and all the
Yeah.
fans are walking up. Um, but man, I mean, the press box being tall, it gave shade over everything. It was just, it was perfect, right in the middle. It kind of reminds you of those small European pitches where they're right in the middle of a neighborhood or whatever.
Hmm.
It was, I just thought the atmosphere was cool. One of my wife's, she used to work for Wellcom, which is on UNO's campus now. So one of the guys that shared the building, he's actually was in charge of helping set up all the IT stuff for the match.
Oh, okay.
So I ran into him, and that was his first Omaha, Union Omaha match.
See,
So
and I feel like
just
that was just a great opportunity. I really hope that that brings more people out to Warner Park. I'm not sure if it
for sure.
will, but I just, especially having those UNO students have access to the game, I
Yeah,
think it was really beneficial.
yeah. I think we posted it in the Discord, but Ben and I were sitting there, and this kid walked by in a messy Barcelona jersey, and he's sitting right behind us, and he's talking to some girl. I think he was trying to impress. And he's like, "Yeah, this is only my second pro soccer match I've been to. First one was the Barcelona match." I was like, "This girl doesn't care, but cool, good for you, man.
Yeah.
It's like do your thing. It's cool." Um, but again, his second match ever is a Union Omaha match. It's great. I mean, he
Hmm.
wouldn't have had access any other way.
Right.
Um, I think further proof of building a stadium in an urban area is beneficial for the club. Um,
Definitely.
we got 3 millionaires to ride public transportation with us from.
Yeah. And how was that?
It was
Was that
great.
awesome?
It was great. It was super smooth. We missed the one bus by 1 minute, so
Oh,
we had to wait about 8 minutes. But they're coming through so quickly.
yeah.
So we were able to get on. We were still there well before kickoff. Yeah, it was perfect. It was awesome. The Metro people came out and talked a little bit and handed stuff out. So yeah, it was great. I thought it
Awesome.
was fun. We had Gary Green to ride a public bus in Omaha. So
He probably loved that.
sure, it was a thing he did. So um, all right, yeah. So I just I thought it was a great atmosphere. I would hope that if we have another chance to play there, we take it. Um, Obviously, Jay has even greater connections at UNO with starting that men's soccer program and
Hmm.
being so linked to it. So I think that probably helped a lot.
Yeah.
A cough, hang on. Yeah, my daughter I think shared her lovely illness with me.
Oh.
Kids, we teach them to share, but they don't realize they shouldn't share literally everything. Um, all right, so let's talk a little bit about the first half. The first half,
Mhm.
we didn't have any goals. What I think overall, let's just start with Hailstorm. What did you think about their style of play, how they were playing against us in that first half?
Well, initially I thought they were going to come out and be a challenge already. I mean, it was the US Open Cup game, two USL League One teams in
Yeah,
it. Um, and I think they proved my prediction correct. I saw them coming out excited. I think the atmosphere had both teams energetic and
for sure.
physical. But I also think at the same time we were excited and stressed at the beginning. I think both teams were feeling the tension. That's
Mhm.
what I saw initially, and clearly by their fouls that
Mhm.
Hailstorm has had, it showed.
Yeah, and I wonder too. Now, by the time kickoff happened, about half the pitch was shaded. Um, but man, it was hot that day.
Hmm.
And as much as I'd love to say our guys, most of our guys that have been on the team have played in the heat here, but that was our first really hot game this year, and it's really early for Omaha. Obviously, a lot of our guys are coming from various places, but the heat and humidity looks different, and I just wondered too if there was some adjustment to that. And then the playing surface, the pitch was
Yes.
beautiful, it played well, but I just wonder if that affected them in some way too. Um, but yeah, I think they had a foul within the first minute.
Hmm.
They had a guy with a yellow card right away.
Yeah.
And I think they were trying to set the tone. It was their first shot at us,
Yeah.
and even though it wasn't League One, it was their first shot at us. Um, their coach, who played for Chattanooga before, um, received several heckles throughout the match, including when
Yes.
he decided to put a sweater on in 94-degree weather.
During the hydration break for
Yeah,
the extreme heat. Yep.
yeah. I don't know. I didn't get it. He was an interesting man. Um, I think one of their yellows in the first half was also for one of the bench coaches. Um,
Yes.
and we'll get to the other yellow for a coach, but an Open Cup game with two yellows for a coach on a bench, which was interesting.
Right.
Um, so who for Union Omaha stood out to you in the first half?
Um, for me, I really enjoyed. I mean, I think it goes back to our outside backs. I really enjoyed seeing Isaac out there. I think he did a really good job, especially without Dion on that right side. He did a great
Mm-hmm.
job going up and down the field. That stood out to me because we haven't seen him for the beginning of the
Yeah.
season. Ryan as well,
Yep.
especially with him going up and down. I love to see that. I love to see the
Yeah.
attacking plays. And you look at that more because of our formation. It
Mm-hmm.
was different.
It was.
And it gave them the ability to go up and down the field, I thought. And what did you think about the formation and how we played?
So it was interesting. I think when we were attacking, we almost went to a 3-4-3.
Mm-hmm.
Jay was wanting one of them to push up and having the other one stay back on the outside backs. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Alex and Dalton stayed back for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, but Dalton even ventured forward a few times
Yeah.
into the midfield, and then that gave us four in the midfield, and then Noe would kind of go central, and we'd almost have Kamal and Hugo on the outside there as wings, and yeah, I liked it because then when we fell back, we really fell back to that 4-4-2 defensively.
Yes.
So we kept the four midfielders, but then we still had four defenders back. And I think it threw Colorado off. Um,
Definitely.
you
I
know,
think that's why they probably started
yeah.
that way. And it was a possible thing. I'm not sure how long they were practicing that or planning on playing that formation, but you brought up a good point. Kamal's another one that stood out to me in that game. I think he had a fantastic game.
I think a lot of us, I haven't heard anything about Dion. I know he didn't play in Richmond as well. But for him to get put out on that right wing spot, essentially that right wing forward spot that they do, it was such a weird, like,
Yeah.
marriage of those two things. He played really well out there, and him and Isaac, I don't I don't know if they know each other. I don't know anything about them, but they looked like they had played together for a long time.
They did great on that
Yeah,
side.
yeah, they overlapped so well.
Hmm.
Um, and you can tell Joe and Ryan were figuring some of that out when Joe was in the midfield, because he wasn't pushing up as far at first, but then him and Ryan were overlapping each other too. They looked really good.
Yeah.
I know Connor scored a goal. We'll talk about that, but I thought Connor that night was the first time like the captaincy showed, like his ability to talk to the refs, his leadership really showed in that match,
Hmm.
especially as physical as Colorado started.
Right.
He was over there protecting his guys. JP was getting kicked and hit constantly in that first half.
Yep.
And not only did Connor go over and say something, but he also kept JP from like flipping out and losing his cool about stuff. So yeah, I mean, they look good. Shido didn't have a ton to do, so
Yeah.
which was nice. It's always good to have. We spent a lot of time, I felt like, in either their half or barely into our half. I don't feel like the ball really got down there too much. The only other thing that stood out to us in the Parliament end was the ball girl on that end where the trees were, not on the
Hmm.
side. She didn't know what she was doing.
I didn't notice.
And so the ball would like go to the trees, and instead of giving the ball on the cone over to the goalie, she would run after the ball that went to the trees. And so it worked for us because the Colorado players then had to like go scoop. But you could just see they were laughing the entire time too. Like
Oh,
they're
that's
like,
hilarious.
and then she came over after the match and like gave us all high fives when we were giving the players high fives and stuff. So she was
Oh,
awesome. Um, so how were you feeling going into halftime then? Obviously, we both thought they looked pretty good in the first half, but no goals. So
um, I think anytime going into halftime when there's no goals, I'm nervous. I think I always, especially early in the season, you're like, okay, are we gonna be a second half team,
yeah,
or was that all we could give?
right,
And so you never know until the second half comes. And so I'm
sure,
always like wanting to end the first half. And it was a good note. I mean, it was
yeah,
0-0. But for me, I'm like, we need to be winning. So
yeah,
just selfish, but nervous. I was
yeah,
nervous because you never know what kind of conversations going on in the Hailstorm locker room. Are they getting pumped up and
yeah,
fired up from all the fans? What are we talking about? Are we freaking out internally? But
true.
clearly in the second half, as we'll talk about, it was,
I think they
it,
were okay.
yeah, I think it was a good turnout.
The one thing we didn't talk about, were you able to see the entrances,
Of the
the
players?
teams when the teams came in? Yeah,
Yes.
that was cool. Like how they had them
Yeah.
come through the different tunnels and go through the stands. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked that as well. I thought that was a nice personal touch. It probably,
Mhm.
well, at least I was on the Union Omaha side, close to them, and you could tell they were pretty fired up and
Yeah.
happy to see people and familiar faces.
Well, and so Peter asked me to make sure no one walked in front of that because that's where Parliament was sitting. So I had to stand there and tell people they couldn't walk as the Colorado players came through. But
Mhm.
you can see it on their faces a little bit too, like, oh, okay, this is different. This is kind of cool.
Yeah,
And they don't have a stadium yet, so I'm sure they're probably
right.
like, okay, maybe this is something that could happen, but it's different. You don't get to see something like that a whole lot.
Hmm.
So that was cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. Going into halftime, the because it was a football stadium first and it was converted into a soccer stadium, it's one of the few that's actually built east and west versus going north and south.
Hmm.
And so when the wind was coming through, it was coming more across.
Yeah.
And I think that affected some of the play in the first half um, because you could tell, and we'll talk about kind of the buildup with both the goals, but you could tell the buildup moved from keeping the ball in the air to keeping it on the ground. Because that wind was it was blowing everything towards the stands.
And thank goodness they did that. I also just feel like that's a better tactic because of the height of our attacking players. So I mean, and you see the buildup on the ground and how our midfield. I mean, we have midfielders who are a little bit taller, but how our midfielders can pass
Yep.
together and play it through and run and cross, and I just enjoy that sort of play a lot better than just kicking it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great way to segue into Noe's goal. So,
Hmm.
Noe scores 2 minutes after halftime. Um, so yeah, you were just kind of talking about the link up play, but I called it this is like it's beautiful soccer to me. Like
Yes.
that's how the game's meant to be played. But yeah, it started up the middle, went out to Kamal, came back to no. I mean, it was just a lot of that, just moving the ball around right inside and a little bit outside that box.
Hmm.
So what'd you think of that build up play?
I mean, you hit the nail on the pin, whatever that saying is. It
Nail
was,
on the head.
yeah, that.
I got you.
It was great to see. I mean, it's always satisfying, especially with the way Noe headed the ball into the goal, it was awesome. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, so I think this one was his foot. The header was in
oh,
Richmond. I,
oh,
Here's the thing: he's scored in 3 straight games, so it's hard to know.
yes, you
Yeah,
are
the
so
header was in
right.
Richmond. But that's okay.
Yes. But I thank you. But I did enjoy that goal as well. I think both of our goals that we saw in the second half were just satisfying to
Yeah.
watch.
I love too that it was wide, but just not wide enough that the keeper still got a little bit of a finger on it, but it still
Yeah.
went in the net. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, and we'll include the Richmond match, but he's scored in 3 straight games now. I think he's starting to be less, well, he's starting to be more selfish, is the way I should say it. Which is what we need up top. You need a guy that's just going to take shots.
And he also is able to put them on target too. And that's just so great. They're hard hit shots and they're on target.
Yeah, he's probably had a couple, I think, this season, even where he's hit the woodwork. Or if it goes wide, it's not very wide. He's making the keepers work, which is good because that stuff stays with goalkeepers, right, throughout the match. That it's like, okay, this guy, I can't like let my guard down because he was only an inch off last time, you know.
Yeah.
So my other thought with the way that they were playing with the link up play is is this an indication this team is starting to gel more, is starting to come together more? We've kind of talked about them needing to be cohesive, but
yeah,
what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think so, especially with our transition to a different formation and how we were able to quickly adjust to that. I think it's impressive. That means that they're understanding each other as players and not just the system of formation. You see a different formation, you still see them link up and pass and play together and score and win. That definitely means that there's a connection and there's chemistry on the team.
For sure. I know with Isaac, there's some visa type things going on, but I'm not sure if it was just that he wasn't able to get in the country or if he was here but couldn't play. But he looked like he's been practicing with the team, has been working with the team.
Definitely.
So it wasn't a surprise for him to gel that quickly, because if you're already practicing, it wasn't a Toby situation in the first season where he shows up from Kenya with a month left in the season or whatever. I mean, he's been there, he knows the guys, so that helped. It was seamless. And I really like the fact that Amir can come in more as a sub for a midfielder or in the back or whatever. I think that probably fits him better now.
Definitely. Yeah, and we were able to see him. These two games are gelling together, but we were able to see him even take a couple chances on goal, and so that's what you want to see. He has more of an attacking mindset, I would say.
He sure does.
Yeah.
And his passing is amazing. I mean, he had a couple nice balls to Camille down the side.
Yes.
His control of the ball when he had defenders on him was great. He's so confident on the ball, which I love to see. So we get our second goal. Connor finally scores for Omaha.
That was awesome.
So happy for him. I know we gave him a lot of crap for shooting from outside. I even gave him crap on Twitter, and he was okay with it. But what I said to him on Twitter was, "See, Connor, you just had to get a little bit closer to score a goal." But I'm just happy for him. Obviously, he wasn't brought here last year to be a goal scorer. That was kind of like Greg was brought in, and obviously we had Evan. But you could tell Connor wanted one, and it means a lot to him. I mean, he's been a pro for a long time. So, I mean, same thing. What did you think of the setup for this one? Do you remember the setup for this one?
Yes, actually, I do more so, just because I was very, very excited for Connor. I think going back to last year versus this year, he's in a position that he's more comfortable in this year.
Yeah,
he's in the center. He's able to move. He has a great vision of the field. And it showed based on how we were passing and leading up to this goal. I mean, we had like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 passes together from different players leading up to the goal. You see Connor see the through ball. You see him slowly running, time it just right,
Perfect.
and
Yep.
then calmly shoot it. I mean, it was great. And that's what I feel like we can expect from him this season are those link ups and his vision on the field, especially now that he has that one.
For sure. I agree. Well, and that's where his experience came into play, right? Like all that timing stuff you're talking about. That's where having an experienced midfielder that can push up at the right time. He made the right run, so that wasn't offside. And he was so calm with the shot. I mean, he just, I know he's been trying from like 25 yards out for a lot of those, but I want him closer more often because he has a good touch on the ball. I mean, better than I assumed.
I think we'll see it more often now, actually, especially if we switch in transition. Who knows what our formation will be in the future. I mean, I think we'll see it more often. And I think him and JP and Joe in the center helped him be able to move a little bit more.
Absolutely. Well, that's the nice part is, I mean, both Connor and JP can play defensively.
Yep.
So if one pushes up, the other can drop. And that helps Jay a lot, I think, with that, because when Connor's pushed up, JP falls back and we know he can help clean up in the back. So that's helped a lot. How important was this for the team? I mean, obviously he's our captain this year, so that's always big when your captain scores, but how important was it for him? How important is it for the team that he got his first goal for the team?
I mean, I think it was a big deal for him. I think this team has meant a lot to him, I'm assuming. But I mean, he's such a wonderful captain for this team and a great example. And seeing him finally get a goal after all his hard work and everything he does, like you had mentioned, he sticks up for his teammates. And so him being able to celebrate his goal as well with such a great buildup from the team as a whole. I think it was a great team bonding experience.
I agree. Huge smile on his face, which was amazing to see. The other thing I saw, I don't know if you could see it because it was more towards our end, and obviously you were you were behind UO's bench. We were chanting at him, and as he was walking away, he kind of went like this, like did a couple of those. Just, I mean, they were big, but he just kind of did that. You could just tell, like, it meant something to him too. Just the fans were behind it. So, and you kind of got to this too, but I think the guys, the way they celebrated for Connor, I mean, they all went, a few of them went to Noe, but I think almost every guy on the pitch ran to Connor and mobbed him when he scored. And I think that just shows a lot of who he is as a person.
Definitely.
I laugh because I think somebody told me that somebody had said that they think like Rashid is the face of the team, which don't get me wrong. I love Shido, but you know, captains are usually that person. And I think Connor could easily is that person. I think that showed, at least internally from the team, the way they celebrated is he is their leader. Like you don't go rush the guy like that if he's not the leader. And
his leadership shows. I mean, Shido's leadership shows on the back all the way out to the field, but Connor's starts in the center and radiates out. So it's two different positions, but both great leaders. And I agree, Connor's leadership especially showed on that Open Cup game. It was great.
Well, I know Jay tends to pick older guys, but I think he picks calm people. I think I love Rashid, but I think he's a little fiery on the field. And I think if he had to go talk to a ref, he may talk himself into trouble a few times, especially with our refs. So, so we ended up with 9. Yes, count them. 9. Actually, so I kept it on my watch. We went to 10:01 because about 30 seconds in, we had one of our players down with cramps for about a minute. So what did you think when they announced 9 minutes of stoppage time?
Well, I was watching Dalton, and he turned to the fourth ref, and he goes, 9? 9? And I could just see his mouth, and he goes, should have been 7 at most. And I'm like, yeah, I agree, because that is just so much time to catch up. I don't know, something crazy could happen in 9 minutes.
So Ben's in the Dominican, but I'm going to help him with the data dump here because he told me this in the game. Northern Colorado in their 3 U.S. Open Cup matches never played less than 8 minutes of stoppage time in the second half.
Wow.
Yeah. 8 or more minutes of stoppage time in every single one of those matches. That's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, There has to be something. I mean, yes, it was hot and people were cramping and people were getting injured, but that has to be something with maybe, I don't know, a tactic or the way that the coaches in the sideline
It
were
was
talking
weird.
and trying to call fouls. And I don't know, it was
Yeah,
interesting.
it was odd. I mean, I, trying to think, we had a couple guys go down,
Hmm.
but nothing that was super long term. Um,
No,
we had somebody down for a little, or they had somebody down for a little bit,
they did.
the defender, but I mean, like you said, I don't think that it equaled another 9 minutes of stoppage time.
Right.
Now, obviously, with the water breaks, they're going to add a little bit of extra time because I think we had 6 in the first half. So, I mean,
Hmm.
they played 15 extra minutes of soccer, really.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that Jay didn't like it because Jay said something to the ref. He something about what would happen if he was in a different country and gave 9 minutes of stoppage time. And got a yellow, and then turned to the crowd and clapped and nearly got himself another red.
I was nervous
Um,
there.
I was very nervous for Jay. Um, I I mean, I think Jay chirps at the refs and he's on them a lot. I don't know what he said exactly. I've just heard rumors of what he said, but he must have said something enough that that ref was like, "Oh no, this isn't happening."
Right. Because I mean, you could kind of see since they were right next to the stands, you could kind of see how the fourth official was gravitating towards Jay about
Mhm.
Hailstorm's coach and was like, I know, we're trying, so kind of
Yeah.
just siding with him. And so something must have been said
Yeah.
that was not quite acceptable.
You, usually it involves words only adults should say, or something about that person personally.
Yes.
Um, yeah, the Hailstorms coach had a hard time staying in his technical area. Um, and
He
Luke,
couldn't he couldn't stop moving because his pants were so tight.
true. Um, yeah, Luke was giving him a hard time about not staying in his technical box. It was hilarious. Um, so we'll talk about the draw and preview Minnesota United for the next podcast that we do. But Omaha is on the road for that, so we'll talk
Hmm.
more about that. Why don't we? Do you have anything else on this one?
No, it was a good
Yeah,
game.
it was a great match. All right, let's jump. There was another match played last week, and because of all of our schedules, we didn't have time to talk about the Open Cup match before this one. So then we had to travel to Richmond
Hmm.
and play the Kickers, who have had a pretty decent start to the season. I think Richmond's started off pretty hot. I felt like this was probably a little rougher on the guys than they expected as far as the travel
Yeah.
right after an Open Cup match. Um, I told you earlier when we were getting set up, I watched a lot of the first half of this on my phone, so the quality and size of my picture wasn't great. Um, from what I could tell in the first half, we it was really up and down. I don't know what you thought, but I thought we looked a little off at first until the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a less memorable match from on my end for
Yeah,
me. Mostly because you can't put a lot of pressure on the guys after a big game, and then
for sure.
you have a couple of days for turnover, and it's a travel. I My mentality when I watch games is I like think about that, and then
Mhm.
it wagers with me on how much I truly care to watch it because I don't
Right.
want to emotionally invest too much if all of these factors are in play. But I mean, they did well. I mean, at the beginning, it was back and forth. I think everybody's
Yeah.
legs were feeling it. Richmond had also had their U.S. Open Cup game,
Yep.
so both
They got
sides were
smoked.
yes, and both sides were probably
Oh, for
recovering
sure.
from it. Yeah.
Well, and they've always played the style with Terzaghi where he pushes up a lot and he's a nuisance up there.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about his challenge on Shido here in a minute, but Terzaghi is one of those guys, like, you hate him when he's on another team, but if he was on your team, you like the way he plays because he's like mentally he's just grinding on the other players.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you can't shut off when Terzaghi's on the pitch, and that's the hard part with him.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he didn't score their goal, that's the kind of player he is. You just always have to be watching for him. I mean, he's back-to-back Golden Boot winner. You can't just let him go running free.
Yeah.
I think this is also our furthest travel now to Virginia. So, that's a big factor too. It's not like they had to go and travel to Madison or, somewhere a little closer. They were going to probably one of the furthest places away outside of them and probably Fuego.
Yeah.
The prior two longest now. So Hugo had a good chance about 15 minutes in. He was offside, but I mean, if he had been onside, I think that probably would have gone in.
Yes.
I think those guys, they see the flag go up and sometimes they kind of pump the brakes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that with Hugo. He's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Burrito gets injured real early on. Amir came in. I think this is about 21, 22 minutes in the match.
Yeah.
I want to know your thoughts. I think it impacted how the team was playing a little bit after that because of the style difference.
Absolutely. I agree. I also feel like we've talked about this before. I also feel like since we don't normally see a sub until like after the 70th minute, it's almost like a mentality switch for the guys. It's like, for sure. We must be saving legs, then maybe we shouldn't be going as intense. You can only imagine the kind of thoughts that are going on in the head. Somebody gets injured, it's going to be a long game. It's only the 21st, 22nd minute. Here we go. So not only the change of personnel, but that change of mentality there from then on, I noticed it too.
Well, and it really showed we were playing two physical games in a row too, within days of each other. And that takes a toll on the body. Joe was able to get off the field under his own power. He seemed to be okay. I haven't heard anything else. So hopefully he's all right. He's been a definite bright spot so far in the season. I liken him to Devin Boyce in the sense of he came out of nowhere type thing to us because, Devin was one of those guys that joined the team late in 20 and then started the first match and never left the pitch. We were like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And I think Joe was kind of the same way. It's like, oh yeah, they signed some guy midfielder and then he's been amazing. So I hope he's good. I think it was enough that he couldn't stay on, which is fine. There's no use in it's too early to be pushing guys that may or may not be injured or may just have gotten a knock.
Yeah.
But not long after that, Noe got his third goal in 3 matches.
Yes.
This was the headed one.
Now this one I remember. This is the one that's pretty much fresh in my brain. Yeah, it is. I'm not thinking about anything else. I can't even talk.
Well, they also don't know that it's almost 10 o'clock at night and you played a soccer game tonight. So.
Right.
So I think this is probably the assist that got Ryan on Team of the Week. And probably what Jay saw in Jiba to bring him to this team. Brought it up that left wing on, from that fullback spot, and it was a beautiful cross. No, we didn't have to do a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, it was what we saw when we were looking into what Ryan would bring. I mean, doing our own research, and we're like, he's going to be dangerous. That ball in and Noe at least even being there and challenging it. I think it was fantastic.
I was trying to pull up the clip, which of course our Jack, the media guru at Union Omaha, does a great job, but he has so much media I don't ever remember. Or here it is. I thought Noe was kind of in some traffic a little bit too.
There was probably 3 defenders around him. I would say Richmond's defense was on top of it.
Yeah, so he had a guy on his back. It'd be his right shoulder, but his back shoulder from where the ball came from. And he had a guy. I mean, there was a guy on the ball side too. That the ball just perfectly went over. So yeah, I mean, Noe doing what we want strikers to do is just getting ahead on the ball,
Hmm.
put it towards goal. Hopefully it goes in. Um, Later on in the first half was action packed.
Hmm.
So Terzaghi, there's a ball in. Shido went for it on the ground. Terzaghi was going for it at the same time. Top of the boot. It wasn't his cleats or anything, but top of the boot went into, I think it was like the ear, back of the head area to Shido. He was down for a little bit. Got a yellow card for it. I know I described it a certain way, but in the moment, did you think it was more than a yellow, or do you think a yellow was fair there?
I thought a yellow was fair. I was just pretty nervous. I mean, it didn't look like an intentional thing that would result in a red. Yeah.
Yeah. And as pesky as he can be, I don't think he's a dirty player.
Yes.
I think it was two guys going for a ball, and that's the danger of playing goalie. I mean,
Hmm.
really, that's the danger of it going in.
Right.
Um, so before halftime, Richmond evens it up, which also was the ending score. I don't usually like to compliment the other teams when they score, but this was a hell of a goal. uh,
Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking that. I mean, you can't really complain about it.
no, I mean, it was good buildup, and it was a well placed shot. And even if Shido hadn't just been kicked in the head earlier in the half, I think that would have been a tough one for him to go after.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, it was really well done. Um, Second half, Kevin subbed on for Shido at halftime, so I think enough of a concern. Obviously, with head injuries, you got to be careful. But enough of a concern, they didn't want to send Rashid right back out there.
Hmm.
Um, Kevin ended up with the save of the match, or whatever, the catch of the match after in the second half anyway, from that free kick.
Yeah.
Um, this, no offense to Sam Howard, but this is why I like having Kevin on this team. Because I honestly did not even realize Kevin was on the pitch in the second half because I missed the announcement of the halftime sub with how I was watching the match. And it was so seamless, couldn't even tell that it was a different keeper at first.
Yeah, I think he is a very experienced and comfortable keeper back there. It's nothing where you're like, oh my gosh, he's gonna freak out because
Right.
he needs to feel like he's gonna save the day. No, you
Right.
feel comfortable with him back there. I think he also has a fairly good leadership role with
Mm-hmm.
the defensive line, and
For sure.
it's always a good transition from Shido to Kevin.
Yeah. I think too, he he's a much calmer presence.
Yeah,
And so I think sometimes that's when you can tell, because you're like, oh, somebody calmly caught the ball.
yeah, it's
And
true.
he fits. He and Shido have a similar style. Like, he fits, I think, our playing style back there a lot better than Sam did in the first season. So
Hmm.
we had two injury subs in the match. One of the reasons why I'm happy that they keep the 5 sub rule, because at this point we'd be down to one in most other leagues. um,
Yeah,
so all I wrote in the notes for this was there were lots of yellows in the second half because it just got to be a card fest.
yep,
I think what you said earlier is a lot of this: tired legs, tired guys, and there was just a lot of. I think there's just a lot of heavy challenges that probably wouldn't be as heavy if you had a full week's rest.
definitely. And I just, again, it was hard to make it memorable because of all those factors. It's like,
Right.
okay, well, they're just trying to get through it. They're trying to get through the scheduled
Yeah.
game, you know?
Well, and I mean, as always, a point on the road is never a bad thing.
It's a good point.
Especially, yeah. We've dropped, the only match we haven't left on the road was that Charlotte match. It's the only one we've lost on the road. All the other ones for the league on the road have been draws,
Hmm.
and we have the one win at home. So I mean, yeah, they're points gained, in my opinion, when you're on the road.
Hmm.
So mostly for our timing purposes. I don't know how long we've been going, but
Yeah,
um,
it doesn't say. We'll
so
keep going.
that's fine. I just have a few other points, but after this match, 5 matches now. We have a win, 3 draws, and a loss. Um, I kind of just brought it up, but what do you think about the ability to get draws early in the season on the road? good thing? I think we all agree it's usually a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's good. And I mean, everybody that I've talked to, this beginning of the season is early. You are all feeling each other out. And
Yeah,
so a draw is always going to be better than a
right.
loss. And you can't expect anybody to be the best all the time at the beginning of the season. The end of the
Yeah,
season is when you see and build those expectations.
absolutely. And here's my thing is at the end of the season, these three draws, like, could end up being three wins.
They're going to help us, I think.
Right.
They're points.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is at the end of the season, it could come down to a difference of where we end up in the playoff race. Um,
Definitely.
and the reality is we did this in 2020 where we kind of started with a few draws and we kind of got going. And then all of a sudden those draws turned into wins because
Hmm.
the defense shored themselves up or the offense started putting goals in. And all of a sudden then we were winning, winning, winning. We shot straight up the table.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that Charlotte one's the only one that hurts because you come away with 0 points, but
Yes.
that's okay. Um, what are your overall impressions of the team? So they've played 8 total games now, right? I mean, we've played 3 U.S. Open Cup matches, 5 league matches. What are your impressions after 8 competitive matches?
I'm feeling good about this season. I think, like we had mentioned, the change in formations is something
Mhm.
exciting. We have depth, and as long as we keep our team healthy, I think we're going to have a
Yeah.
wonderful season. We have tons of potential, and our players have been coming out and showing their true abilities.
The the health thing is the only thing that really worries me
Right?
because
It's a
our
long
squad,
season.
it's a long season and we were thin in a few positions where I'd feel better if we had another player or two, but
I agree.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll do kind of what they did with Jaime and Yoskar in 2020 and get a couple academy or last year, I guess, get a couple academy contracts and
Hmm.
get some guys in somehow. The Nebraska State soccer tournament just happened, and I know that there were Union Omaha representatives at the finals and
Hmm.
watching guys, and I mean that's kind of how Yoskar got sought out too, was from
Yeah.
playing for Lexington, and um, Yoskar got interviewed and got shown because he was at Lexington's match, so that was pretty awesome. Good for him going out there supporting
Hmm.
his old team. Um, so yeah, I mean I agree. I think the thing we've seen from Des Moines through Richmond is how much a lot of these guys have already grown.
Hmm.
And if they've grown like that in 8 matches, we have a long ways to go still.
Yeah.
And so, I think that by the end of the season, this team's going to look a lot different and feel a lot different. So
I agree.
cool. All right. I just got one last question. Who gives a hoot?
We
We
do.
do.
Oh.
I don't know how good that was.